Let's jump right into what might just be the ultimate historical cold case, the peopling of the Americas. You know, for a really long time, we thought we had this whole story completely figured out. We had our textbooks, we had our timelines, the whole shebang. But recently, well, new discoveries have essentially forced us to tear up those old narratives and look at the deep past in a totally different way. So today, in this explainer, we're going to treat this like a true discovery-based investigation, and we're going to piece together the clues together.
Right off the bat, we run into a massive geographical hurdle. I mean, imagine trying to retrace someone's exact footsteps, but the road they walked on is literally at the bottom of the sea. During the last glacial maximum, the Earth's climate was vastly different than it is today. Because so much of the planet's water was locked up in these just colossal ice sheets, global sea levels were more than 400 feet lower. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the height of a 40-story building. That means the ancient coastlines where early humans actually traveled and camped and foraged, they're entirely submerged now. This drastic shift has totally hidden some of the most crucial evidence from us. So the big question is, how do we track movements that we physically cannot see?
Well, to solve a mystery this incredibly deep, we need a specific investigative toolkit. And ours relies on three distinct archives. We've got the Earth's archive, which is our physical artifacts, the biological archive, meaning our genetic data, and the living archive, which comes from oral histories.
Part 1. Clues in the Earth. Reading the physical record. Okay, so when we talk about archaeology, we aren't just talking about, digging up cool old objects. We are really talking about context, and we establish that context through stratigraphy. Basically, it's the process by which layers of Earth, or stratification, are created over time, and the actual scientific study of those layers. Think of the ground beneath your feet as a giant, layered cake. The deeper you go, the older the layers get, right? Stratigraphy is absolutely crucial. It's the total foundation for turning a random pile of dirt into a verifiable, chronological timeline of human existence.
Now, out in the field, this builds into an actual rigorous methodology. A field archaeologist basically has three precise responsibilities. Step 1, reconstruct that stratigraphy from the layers they can physically see in the dirt. Step 2, delineate context. Now, this is the big one. It literally means pinpointing an object's exact place in time and space. Because without a defined layer, an artifact, it has zero context. It's just a cool rock. And step 3, demonstrate association. This means proving that two items entered the historical record at the exact same time because of the exact same process. It's the line between circumstantial evidence and verifiable hard proof. For decades, the physical evidence we found pointed to one really dominant theory, called the Clovis First hypothesis. This argued that early peoples migrated south exclusively via this inland ice-free corridor sandwiched between massive glaciers. But as our digging methods improved, an alternative theory emerged that challenged pretty much everything. It's called the coastal migration hypothesis. Actually, scratch the idea of trudging through a barren, freezing wasteland. Instead, imagine early hunter-gatherers navigating down the Pacific coast in watercraft, cruising along what scientists call a kelp highway. Just a lush, vibrant maritime route utterly packed with marine mammals, fish, seabirds, and edible seaweeds.
And here is the number that completely changed the game for everyone: 14,500. The Monteverde archaeological site in Chile dates back at least 14,500 years. Now, what's absolutely incredible about this isn't just the date itself, which, by the way, places humans way down in South America well before that inland ice corridor was even open, but it's the actual evidence they left behind. Archaeologists found the remains of 9 different types of seaweeds, including kelp. This jaw-dropping physical evidence strongly validates the reality of that coastal maritime migration route.
Part 2. Tracing the genetic code. Unlocking the biological archive.
So what happens when migrations leave absolutely zero physical footprints, say because they're currently sitting 400 feet under the ocean? Well, that's when we turn to DNA. Modern science allows us to abstract ancient bones into pure statistical data. A really perfect example of this is Anzac 1. This was a child buried in western Montana roughly 13,000 years ago. By mapping this child's complete genome, geneticists were able to uncover lineages linking this ancient individual not just to ancient Siberians, but directly to many contemporary Native American populations all across North and South America. DNA literally acts as an invisible map of human movement, completely hidden inside our very cells. It is just awe-inspiring.
And we can take those abstract genetic mutations and use them to anchor concrete, epic historical milestones. By tracking exactly how and when DNA mutates, geneticists estimate that around 25,000 years ago, there was an initial mixture of East Asian and ancient North Siberian lineages. Then, fast forward to about 22,000 years ago, a group known as the ancient Beringians separated from other lineages. They were likely totally isolated during the super harsh deep freeze of the Ice Age. Finally, around 17,500 years ago, the lineages split again, this time into North and South Native American groups. So, genetics essentially provides this breathtakingly precise clock for when these ancient populations diverged and expanded across the globe.
Part 3. Listening to Living Memory, the Indigenous Counter-Archive.
Now, for a really long time, Western science unfortunately dismissed indigenous oral traditions as mere myth, but researchers are increasingly waking up to the fact that these stories are actually rigorous geographical archives of deep time. Just listen to this incredibly powerful quote from a Bella Bella oral tradition that was recorded back in the late 1800s. It says, "In the beginning there was nothing but water and ice and a narrow strip of shoreline." Guys, that is not a fairy tale. That is a perfectly accurate, scientifically verified description of the environment on the northwest coast of North America during the last deglaciation.
Looking at the Pacific Northwest coast requires us to completely rethink how we even record history. You know, in Western cultures, history is usually written down in textbooks with very specific calendar dates. But for many tribal peoples, vast historical and topological knowledge is inscribed directly into the coastal geography itself. The landscape serves as a mnemonic device. The history is tied directly to the bays, the mountains, and the rivers. The geography literally is the archive.
And we have some amazing concrete examples that validate just how incredibly precise this oral archive can be. For instance, Tlingit stories contain incredibly accurate accounts of ancient glacial advancements and retreats. Nucha-Noth traditions detail the profound historical influence of orcas on local ecosystems and even human rituals. And honestly, perhaps most strikingly of all, in the 1997 Delgamuukwa Supreme Court case up in Canada, Gitsan oral histories describing specific, verifiable paleo-environmental events were accepted as rigorous legal evidence to grant Aboriginal title. I mean, just imagine that. Oral history holding up as hard legal evidence in a Supreme Court. That is a massive conceptual shift.
Recognizing the presence of these indigenous groups today brings up a really vital concept called epistemic equality. Simply put, this means acknowledging that our Western, calendar-based way of knowing isn't the only valid archive out there. Different ways of knowing have equal value. The archaeological past is not just some dead science from a foreign country for these populations. It is a continuous, living reality. The people residing on these coasts today maintain a direct, completely unbroken historical and cultural link to the ancient peoples who navigated that kelp highway thousands and thousands of years ago.
Part 4. Assembling the Deep Past, Solving the Ultimate Puzzle.
So what does this all mean? The absolute crucial point is this. If we truly want to understand the peopling of the Americas, we have to abandon our old single-lane approach. We just cannot rely on one single type of evidence anymore. Decolonizing our understanding of the deep past requires us to fully embrace a multidisciplinary toolkit. We have to treat the spade of the archaeologist uncovering physical stratification, the swab of the geneticist analyzing ancient DNA, and the story of the indigenous elder passing down thousands of years of geographical memory with absolute equal investigative weight. When we synthesize these three archives together, that cold case of human migration finally starts to crack wide open.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. We've spent our entire time today looking backward, right? Using dirt, DNA, and dialogue to uncover a story from 15,000 years ago. But think about our world today. 10,000 years from now, how will future generations attempt to piece together our present? What artifacts, what data fragments, and what enduring stories will they use to discover who we were? It really makes you realize that history isn't just something that happened back then. It's something we are actively leaving behind, right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep time detective story. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I will see you next time.